Hello everyone, welcome to Election Future. We are officially less than a month away from election night, and the race remains a pure coin flip. Polymarket gives Trump a 52% chance of winning, meaning if the election were held 100 times, he would win 52 times, while Kamala Harris would win 47 times, with an approximate 1% chance of something completely unexpected happening. These odds are directly tied to each candidate's chances in the key battleground states, where Polymarket also runs individual markets for each state. In this video, I'll walk you through the odds for each of these states and provide some of my own insights into why they're rated the way they are. Just for your reference, prediction markets like these have often proven to be more accurate than polls. While polls measure public opinion at a specific moment in time, these odds reflect the consensus of people who have a real stake in the outcome. They are literally putting their money where their mouth is, which can lead to a more grounded prediction of how the election will unfold. Let's start with the safe states, where Trump or Harris have better than a 95% chance of winning. For Vice President Kamala Harris, the Pacific Blue Wall is almost guaranteed to stay intact for the 9th consecutive cycle, with Washington, Oregon, California, and Hawaii all firmly in the Democratic column. We also have Colorado, the fastest left-trending state in the nation, and Illinois. In the Northeast, Harris is solid in New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, and Maryland. Joe Biden carried each of those states by at least 15 percentage points in the 2020 cycle. Harris also has a 98% chance of carrying Maine's 1st congressional district, along with the District of Columbia, which doesn't even have a market because Democrats have never won it by less than 50 points. On the other side, Donald Trump has his own set of safe states. He is virtually certain to win in North and South Dakota, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, and Utah. Nebraska's statewide election, as well as its 1st and 3rd districts, are safely Republican, as are Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and South Carolina. Finally, we have Kentucky, Indiana, and West Virginia, all reliably in Trump's column. He carried each of his safe states by at least 15 points in 2020 as well. Looking at the electoral map now, with all the safe states filled in, Kamala Harris jumps out to an early lead in the race to 270 electoral votes, with 191 to Donald Trump's 122. That leaves 225 votes still up for grabs in the 17 more competitive states, which are still shaded in gray. Now, let's move on to the likely states, where each candidate has an 80 to 95% chance of winning. These states strongly favor one candidate, but there's still room for an upset, with the underdog having at least a 5% chance. Starting with Harris, her running mate Tim Walz's home state of Minnesota is likely to stay blue for what would be a record-extending 13th consecutive election cycle. Joe Biden carried Minnesota by 7 points in 2020, and the markets currently give Harris a 92% chance of holding the state in November. However, that might be a bit optimistic given the current state of polling. Harris leads by less than 5 points in an average of the last 4 polls, with margins ranging from +3 to +6. Personally, I'd rate her chances closer to 80%, moving this closer to the lean category rather than likely. Harris is also very likely to hold New Mexico with its 5 electoral votes. Biden won New Mexico by 11 percentage points in 2020, and Harris is seen as the heavy favorite, with a 92% chance of winning according to the latest odds. This feels more accurate given that Harris leads by more than 8 points in the polling average, including 2 double-digit leads in the last 4 polls. Back on our map, Harris is also favored to hold Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, where Democrats currently have a 90% chance of securing that single electoral vote, despite Nebraska being a deep red state. Overall, Joe Biden flipped this Omaha-based district by 6.5 points in 2020, and it's rapidly trending left with a large proportion of college graduates. Harris is also likely to hold Virginia with its 13 electoral votes. Virginia went for Biden by double digits in 2020, though this cycle has shown a more competitive race than expected. Harris leads by about 4.8% based on the last 6 polls, similar to her margin in Minnesota. But the betting markets continue to give her an 88% chance of winning Virginia. Finally, up in New England, both New Hampshire and the statewide race in Maine are also likely to go to Harris. These two tend to be the only semi-competitive races in this otherwise deep blue region, but New Hampshire still went for Biden by 7 points in 2020 and Maine by 9. Polls indicate Harris will hold both for the Democrats by similar margins this November. That wraps up the likely blue states. Before moving on to Trump's likely states, a quick reminder. Only about 20% of you are subscribed, so please take a moment to hit the free subscribe button below for more content like this leading up to Election Day. Now, as for Trump's likely states, let's start with Alaska. Trump is almost certain to win here, with a 91% chance according to the latest odds. Alaska hasn't gone blue in 60 years, though Trump's 10-point margin in 2020 was the narrowest for Republicans since 1968. Turning to the Midwestern tandem of Iowa and Ohio, both are likely to stay in Trump's column. These states voted for Barack Obama in both 2008 and 2012, serving as key bellwethers during that time. However, they've swung hard to the right since then, with Trump winning both by at least 8 points in 2016 and 2020. Currently, Trump has a 93% chance of winning Iowa and a 92% chance of carrying Ohio, according to Polymarket's latest odds. Trump also has an 82% chance of winning Maine's 2nd Congressional District, a district he carried by 10 points in 2016 and by a narrower but still solid 7 points in 2020. This district is among the most rural and whitest in the country, both factors suggesting it could become even more favorable for Republicans in the future. Looking back at the map and moving down south to Florida, Trump is heavily favored to keep the Sunshine State in the Republican column for the 4th straight cycle. Florida, with its 30 electoral votes, the 3rd most in the nation, has long been a quintessential swing state, having been decided by less than 6 points in each of the last 8 cycles. However, it's now firmly leaning Republican after Trump expanded his margin of victory in 2020 compared to 2016. In the 2022 midterms, both Republican Governor Ron DeSantis and Senator Marco Rubio were re-elected by more than 15 points each, signaling an even stronger shift to the right in the state's political landscape. Polymarket currently gives Trump an 86% chance of winning Florida, where he holds a 6-point lead in the Real Clear Politics polling average over the last 5 polls. Now, let's take a look at Texas, the 2nd largest prize on the map with 40 electoral votes. It is also likely to go to Trump. Joe Biden garnered 46.5% of the vote in Texas in 2020, the most for a Democrat since 1976. But despite the leftward trend in urban areas like Dallas and San Antonio, the heavily Hispanic and increasingly right-leaning Rio Grande Valley in South Texas has dampened Democratic hopes of flipping the state blue anytime soon. Polymarket gives Trump an 89% chance of winning Texas, slightly better than his odds in Florida, though the polling actually suggests the opposite. Trump's lead in Texas is currently 5.2%, based on the last 4 polls. Together with the other likely states, Texas gives Trump a significant boost, bringing his electoral vote count to 229, just 7 shy of Harris, who stands at 226. That leaves 93 electoral votes remaining across the 7 core battleground states we've been discussing all cycle. These states were each decided by less than 3 points in 2020, and with the exceptions of Nevada, which voted blue twice, and North Carolina, which voted red in both elections, the other 5 states flipped from Trump in 2016 to Joe Biden in 2020. Now, in the 2024 cycle, neither Trump nor Harris have better than a 70% chance of winning any of the core battleground states. Our next rating classification is lean, which covers the 65 to 80% probability range. Only one state falls into this category, and that is Arizona, with 11 electoral votes. The odds currently favor Trump at 67%. Disregard the colors on the graph, but these are the best odds Republicans have had since Biden exited the race. Remember back in 2020, Arizona went blue for only the 2nd time in 70 years, driven by the rapid growth and diversification of Maricopa County, which includes the Phoenix metro area. However, it only voted for Biden by 0.3%, and Arizona remains a fundamentally Republican state, which is clearly reflected in these odds. While Democrats have won 5 consecutive statewide races for president, U.S. Senate, and governor, Trump is currently leading in the Real Clear Politics polling average by 1.4%, based on the last 11 polls. Now, as for the remaining 6 states, let's go in order of least to most competitive. Georgia joins Arizona as a tilt state in the Trump column. Georgia was the closest state in the 2020 election, decided by a razor-thin 0.2% margin. Similar to Arizona, its leftward shift has been driven by the rapid growth and diversification of its largest population center, Atlanta, where record turnout among black voters barely tipped the scales in Biden's favor. However, in 2024, Trump is now favored on Polymarket with a 64% chance of winning, just shy of lean territory. These are his best odds since President Biden dropped out. Trump also holds a 1.5% lead based on the last 12 polls, with the latest Quinnipiac University poll showing him up by 5 points. Back to the map, the next most likely state to go to either candidate is North Carolina, again leaning toward former President Trump. His odds are sitting at exactly 60% on Polymarket, which is narrower than both Georgia and Arizona, despite North Carolina voting more to the right in 2020. Interestingly, coming into that cycle, North Carolina was considered to the left of both, as it voted more to the left in the previous 3 cycles. However, North Carolina hasn't elected a Democrat to federal office since Barack Obama won it in 2008. He failed to hold it against Mitt Romney in 2012. Each of the last 8 presidential and Senate races in the state has been decided by less than 6 points, cementing North Carolina as a consistently competitive but Republican-leaning state. The Real Clear Politics polling average has Trump leading by about 0.6% based on the last 14 polls. This wouldn't be the first time Democrats felt North Carolina was within reach, only to underperform expectations on Election Day. 4 states remain, and Trump could reach 270 electoral votes with a win in any one of the core Upper Rust Belt trio: Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. These 3 states, each of which voted Democrat in every election from 1992 to 2016, flipped to Trump by less than a point each. Biden returned them to the blue column in 2020, and that was pivotal. If Trump had held just one of these 3 states in 2020, he would still be serving a second term right now. Here in 2024, they may prove decisive once again. Kamala Harris needs to hold all 3 to reach exactly 270 electoral votes, while Trump just needs to crack the wall in any one of these states. On Polymarket, Trump currently has a 56% chance of carrying Pennsylvania, his best odds since late July. The polling average shows the race as an exact tie, with half of the polls showing a dead heat. Pennsylvania is widely regarded as the most likely tipping point state on the electoral map, with Nate Silver giving it a 33% chance of tipping the election, almost double the next most likely state, Michigan. If Trump wins Pennsylvania, as he does here on this map, it's very, very likely he'll reach 270 electoral votes. For Harris, without Pennsylvania, she'd not only need to win every remaining battleground, but also flip a state that's already leaning Trump. A far tougher challenge than just holding Pennsylvania. As for the remaining states on the map, Harris is favored, albeit narrowly. She has a 53% chance in Nevada and a 52% chance in both Wisconsin and Michigan. These would bring her tally to 257 electoral votes, leaving her short of Trump, who would exceed 270 with 281 in this scenario. Pennsylvania proves to be the deciding state. If it flips to Harris, she'd win the presidency with 276. As always, feel free to let me know in the comments what you think of this map and suggest any other videos or topics you'd like to see in the future. That does it for today's video. Shout out to my channel members in the description below. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. You can check out more content from my channel here, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. EP out. In November will apparently be very exciting. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like the video and turn on the notification bell. See you in the next video.